Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Wednesday means it's Wildcard Wednesday here in Instant Deck Tech land, and we have a super spicy, really weird standard deck to check out today. This is Grixis Showdown. Comes to us from Modern Max, who took it to a top 4 finish in a recent Magic League tournament, so congrats to Modern Max on a super sweet deck. A quick reminder before we break down Grixis Showdown for Ixalan Standard. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Grixis Showdown is kind of a really cool Grixis spells deck. It's in some ways slightly reminiscent of our budget Magic Grixis Amulet deck this week, but this is like a straight up combo build of the deck. So Plan 1, or Part 1 of the deck, is permanents that reduce the costs of instant and sorcery. So we have Baral, Chief of Compliance, as a 4 of, Primal Amulet as a 4 of course, flips around into Primal Wellspring. But in this deck, the main plan of both of these cards is just to make our spells cheaper. We're trying to reduce the cost on everything. We really want at least one of these effects on the battlefield, and having 2 can actually be helpful, as you see how our combo actually works. So, step 1, get a cost reduction effect or 2 on the battlefield. Step 2 is we have a ton of 2 mana sorceries that let us discard and draw, or draw and discard cards. 4 Cathartic Reunions, 4 Tormenting Voice, 4 Chart the Course. And remember, if we have a Baral or a Primal Amulet out, these are only costing us 1 mana. So Cathartic Reunion, 1 mana, discard 2, draw 3. Tormenting Voice, 1 mana, discard 1, draw 2. Chart the Course, 1 mana, draw 2, discard 1. So these cards are actually being used for 2 different purposes. They're helping us cycle through our deck, finding our important finishers, while also discarding cards. The unique part of this combo is the discarding a card part of this deck is really important. So, a brief aside, not really part of the combo, Hollow One is like our backup plan. Since we have so many things that let us discard cards, we're playing 4 Hollow Ones, we can just like Cathartic Reunion on turn 3, play a Hollow One for 1 mana, things along those lines, but Hollow One isn't really an important piece of the combo. We can cycle it away when it's bad, but I wanted to mention it along with all of our discard effects, because that's kind of where it fits in. But back to the combo, the real payoff is Shadow of the Grave. So what we're trying to do with this deck is not just Cathartic Reunion, Tormenting Voice, Chart a Course to draw cards, we actually want to be discarding cards, because eventually we're going to Shadow of the Grave for a single mana thanks to Baral or Primal Amulet to get back all the cards we discarded, to Cathartic Reunion, to Tormenting Voice, to Chart a Course, which means Shadow of the Grave is going to be like a draw 3, draw 4, draw 5. It's going to be a massive card draw spell when we're casting all these things for 1 mana, and then all those cards are coming back to our hand, plus we have all the cards that we are drawing naturally from Cathartic Reunion, Chart a Course, and so forth, which means we're going to finish this off with Fateful Showdown. So for just 3 mana with a Primal Amulet out, maybe even 2 mana if we have a Brawl as well, we get back all those cards to our hand, and then Fateful Showdown is hopefully just going to kill our opponent. It's dealing a ton of damage. Damage equal to the number of cards we have in our hand, plus we're discarding and drawing a whole bunch more cards. And then, if 1 copy of Fateful Showdown isn't enough to finish the game, we got a bunch of ways to increase the damage. So let's say we Fateful Showdown number 1, hit our opponent for like 10 damage, then we can just Shadow of the Grave, get back all the cards we discarded to Fateful Showdown, and then do it again with a Fateful Showdown that we drew into off of the Fateful Showdown. Or we can just double it up with Primal Wellspring after flipping our Primal Amulet, which we should be able to do super quickly. Or plan number 3 for the Fateful Showdown kill, we can just cast an Insult to double all of our damage, which means just 1 Fateful Showdown with 10 cards in hand, boom, our opponent is dead, no tricks necessary. So some combination of casting multiple Fateful Showdowns or doubling the effect of 1 Fateful Showdown with Primal Wellspring or Insult to Injury is how we actually close out the game. So step 1, reduce the cost of our stuff. Step 2, draw a bunch of cards, but also discard a bunch of cards so we can get them all back with Shadow of the Grave. Step 3, piece together the win with Fateful Showdown with all the cards we got back from Shadow of the Grave, or maybe even 2 or 3 Fateful Showdowns by doubling it up with Primal Wellspring and Insult to Injury. So a really sweet, kind of almost like Storm-esque combo deck going on in Standard of all places. The rest of the deck, we got Censor for defense, plus remember, Shadow of the Grave gets back cards that were cycled or discarded, so if we cycle it, we get it back to our hand. Reduce to Rebel and Claim to Fame probably look a smidge weird, and they really are a little bit weird, but they're cards that we can discard for value. Like Reduce gives us a counter spell, we can also just discard it and tap our opponent out, or keep them tapped down for a turn. Claim to Fame lets us get our Baral back from the graveyard, also fine with discarding it, getting like a hasty hollow one from the graveyard. As far as the mana base, a bunch of Grixis dual lands. The cycling lands are nice because they come back to our hand when we Shadow of the Grave, and some basic lands. As far as the sideboard, we have a cool backup sideboard, kind of a semi-transformational plan. So in game one, we're not really winning with creatures. We do have the hollow one, so like our backup plan is to hollow one our opponent, but our opponent's likely to take out the removal. We counter that by bringing in Enigma Drakes, and maybe even Fling to get extra Enigma Drake damage, and then we use all of our discarding spells to fill our graveyard with instants and sorceries, and maybe just like 1 or 2 shot with the help of Insult to Injury and Fling our opponent with Enigma Drake. So a really cool sideboard plan that takes advantage of the fact our opponent's definitely going to be taking out a lot of their removal and trying to fight against our spells instead. Then we slip Enigma Drake in underneath, duresses, negates, all that kind of spell hate. So a really sweet plan from the sideboard. Otherwise, a bunch of removal, shocks for the early game, abrades, creatures, and artifacts. Cut to Ribbons is removal that's also a backup finisher, just like our budget Magic deck this week. Ribbons from the graveyard doubled up by Primal Wellspring, usually enough to get the job done. Otherwise, Hour of Devastation and Sweltering Suns for sweepers, a couple of Spell Pierces additional counters, and that is Grixis Showdown for standard. And that's our Instant Deck Tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.